Hello. Hello and welcome. Welcome back. Well, hello for the first time, I guess. Either way, I hope you have been doing well and fine and good and dandy and all the things in the world. Um, Let me just quickly check the audio. Give me a second. It seems to work. I don't know. Just if it's too loud, I beg you, please just turn down the video. It's like sound mixing is a bit difficult for me, or volume mixing, sound mixing, volume mixing, whatever the thing, the thing, the thing, the thing. I've been thinking, yesterday although I did have some reference, I didn't really. How should I say this? The foundation isn't solid enough yet, you know and by that I don't necessarily mean hmm I don't exactly mean the accuracy of of a thing, of a fundamental rule. It's more so the keeping in mind of it, because for me at least, don't know about anyone else, it helps me immensely just keeping in mind the basic structure of, say, making a drawing. I can show you, like, if you look at this, it looks pretty shit. That's not hard to tell, not at all. Figuring out the solution, however, might be a bit more difficult. Well, why does it look shit? One thing could be, let me check. There we go. Just had to put away my notebook. One thing could be, well, it's not constructed properly. Why would we see that? Well, where's the perspective going? Hmm. Sorry. Sorry. Let me go back. So, um, where's the perspective? Like, actually, where's this form going to? I don't know. Like, what is this thing even? So it might do something like this, right? So now we have a slightly better way of telling where this form is actually heading to. One of the earlier things that you would probably notice is the texture. It just kind of looks weird. If you look closely, this looks like it goes everywhere at the same time. Just goes anywhere it pleases. Doesn't matter. It just, well, wherever it wants to head, right? Because that's how I drew it. Because I didn't actually try to keep in mind where the form, would try to turn, for example. Which plane, really, the most telling aspect, or the easiest thing to keep in mind, rather, is not necessarily to question and ask yourself where the form is going, but which planes are facing towards you, you know, because that helps a lot with lighting, which is basically the entire thing, right? This is, in a sense, although very poorly executed, a value study. And it looks like this, and ugly in a way, not in a way, but definitively ugly, because I didn't keep that in mind. I didn't keep the basic rules in mind, you know. I'm not yet still talking about, I'm still not yet talking about, either way, about the accuracy, how well am I adhering to these rules? I'm not doing it at all. Does that make sense? I think it does. Maybe. It's like, well, as any other thing, right? Say you want to clean your house and you tell everyone you're going to clean your house, but you don't actually do it. That's the difference here, Like, I really want to get better at art, and I know a lot of the things that I need to do, I just forget to actually adhere to the rules. Like, I don't construct, or not as much as I should be doing it, because again, the foundation isn't strong enough. Like, I want to rush. I want to rush it, basically. You know, and that's ultimately what's keeping me back. Because if I just constructed this stuff earlier, I'd have a lot more information about where things are. I'd have a lot more confidence in my strokes because I know where things have to go roughly, that kind of thing. And once you've done this often enough, you know, or just occasionally in between, you just do something like this to see how far you're along. So, again, going back to what I said yesterday, there's no point in, you know, hating. I wanted to use a stronger word. To abhor, abhor. Yes, to abhor your ugly drawings, right? Because they do as well serve a purpose, right? And usually these ugly drawings happen when you don't use reference, right? When you try to draw from imagination. But you have to try to draw from imagination, especially when you're not feeling ready for it. Because how will you know when you're actually ready for it if you never try and figure out when you're ready for it, right? So fear in this regard is actually the biggest crutch. And there's always, the option to just go back in and rectify what you did wrong. And that is in itself an approach to studying this stuff, to learning it actually, to go back and rectify what you did, you know? But then is obviously the question, well, how do you go back and rectify if you have no idea what to do at all? Like, at this point, like I thought this the entire time, to be honest, when I was like literally starting out, like day one, which this unfortunately isn't. This isn't the true day 45, right? But I can hardly just be like day 845 and it's the first video. I'm like, no, this is a new section. This is a new, more focused, you know, approach to what I've been doing. But I'm not sure how long I will be keeping this specifically up because I want to try some other things, that I might need more time for, that I may not have if, I'm forcing myself to upload every single day. Which, if you've been around on YouTube for a little bit, you'll know from other people already. So this is not at all anything new. The thought, of course. But, that will probably be far off in the future. Like, I don't know. Far, far off. Kind of just want to, try all sorts of things. Do all sorts of things. And honestly, I could just erase everything here except for the eyes. And I would probably be able to get away with it. Sometimes you just have to cut away all the cancer. I mean, maybe that's a bit too harsh, but, it is what it is. So, let me actually... No, let's not take this. Let's take this. So, since we have the eyes here, right? Let me just actually... Actually, just take this one eye. I've erased everything else. Because it's just dog shit. And it would take way too long to try and fix that. So I'm making sacrifices. I guess. So first, we kind of want to figure out where the eye is sitting, right? It's not the ideal way to start the construction, from the eyes, I mean. Because it's just, well, the eye in relation to what? Exactly. So maybe It should be the eye that I'm trying to erase rather than everything else. Like we can try, you know, sorry, we can try out like getting in a general shape, you know, and you can do this any way you feel like accomplishing it, or rather, any way that you think you will actually accomplish it. Doesn't really matter. I should be more aware of the rules of ellipses to make them at least believable, because the accuracy is suffering a lot. But if you keep to the basic rules, like say, for example, something like this. I don't know if it's true, but say you have a cylinder, right? In three-dimensional space, which is basically just two ellipses connected by two lines, right? Now, there might be a rule that, for example, says, I don't know, the ellipse in the front is significantly larger or elliptical than the ellipse, quote unquote, in the back, which is more resembling or more reminiscent of a circle than, a ellipse, because, I don't know, the viewing angle changes. And if you draw through the form, you have to uh, show that, right? I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is. Those kinds of rules, you don't have to worry too much about the actual accuracy of your strokes, Sometimes you don't even have to really care about the confidence in your strokes, you know? If the general structure is working, there's a lot of things you can make seem correct or believable by just, keeping the very basic rules in mind, Like look at this eye, for example. You want to make it look 3D, right? Well, you'll have to think of the basic rules. You don't have to be too accurate, but look at this, sure. Sure. I just started talking German for a second. Okay. Damn, how does Kiara do it? But look at this, for example, right? We have shadow here. Actually, the shadow has to be a bit further, because this is the entire eyeball here, actually. Like this. Then we could, go back in and I'll try to purposefully, be incorrect about this. Well, not maybe not too incorrect about it, but just enough, to get the point across. Now this is looking very three-dimensional, no? All of a sudden. It's not exactly a masterclass in drawing an eye. But I'm trying to keep the basic rules in place. I'm trying to adhere to them. Which are exactly what? Well, mostly the same as for any other drawing. That includes, for example, to mind the bend in your lines. Mind the bend in your lines. It doesn't have to be a perfect bend. It's often enough, to get it roughly right, Doesn't have to be a perfect copy every time, even if it might look a little bit better if you did it like that, Don't worry too much about accuracy. And I think that's actually the biggest, besides, not really actually drawing. This might be the largest beginner mistake, really. Like you focus too much on the accuracy of your art, instead of focusing, how should I say this? Hmm. Instead of adhering to the basic principles of making art, which are a layer below, I think. Like, imagine it like this, right? We have a pyramid, right? On top here are the pros. Like, they have all of this stuff down. No, actually, let me think about this. No, I have to think about this differently. Sorry. Still, imagine the pyramid, right? And on top, you have rendering. You have the render on top, right? You have the accuracy below it, and the principles below that. And take this word literally, principle. Mean it, like how to, if you don't know at all, okay, how to represent three-dimensionality on a 2D canvas, you are not going to get these right. Accuracy and your render will not improve unless you get this right. The principles. I can still draw this. Oh, well, somewhat. Anyway, right? So you have to focus on the principles. And these, like, the people, I kind of hate it. I really kind of hate it. I really do. I really do. They always call these fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? Well, some people will tell you it's like um, it's anatomy, it's perspective, it's let me think. Let's actually list these, and then I'll, as best as I can, I'll try to give you the resolution here. So people will tell you, oh, focus on fundamentals, right? I don't know what's going on with my pen right here, but this is horrid. Okay, you know what? You will just, we'll just make it work, in a different way. They'll tell you to focus on the fundamentals. What is going on with my pen? Fundamentals? Is that right? Fundament. E or A? I don't know. Let's call it basics, because I can at least write basics, right? I was kind of like fearful there for a second. I just wrote this here, but I basically mean fundamentals. People will tell you focus on fundamentals, and then a beginner is here sitting like, what is a fundamental? They'll tell you anatomy, right? Whoops. They will tell you anatomy, or they will tell you perspective, or they will tell you value, for example, or they will tell you, let me think about it. Kind of trying to pull it out of my mind now. Some of the videos I've actually watched. Anatomy, perspective, value. Some will even tell you about line weight. Right? And the issue is here, really, beyond anything else, these categories here, if we refer to our pyramid of render, we just call this R. This is render, right? This is accuracy, so ACC, right? And then we have principles. The issue with say the category of anatomy is mostly, specifically, like this is one of the more like pure examples here, is that anatomy strictly and only refers to accuracy. It refers to your accuracy of specifically, right, the representation of your accurate representation of human anatomical form, right? That's what you're studying. Actually, maybe it's not the best example for the pure accuracy category here. But I think that's just the power of principles in and of themselves. So, like, you'll spend most of your time trying to study where the brachio, like, what is it called? Radio brachialis is, like, for example, I don't even remember these names myself. Let me just pull this up to get it out of the way. So, like, well, let's just say biceps, whatever. Try to figure out where's the biceps, where does it connect to, which has its, all of these things have their use. But you are a beginner. You want to start out, right? You don't want to be overwhelmed by all of the possibilities you could reach in art. That's retarded. That's stupid. Don't do it. Don't get distracted. The same thing goes for perspective. But actually, let me backtrack a bit here and just examine if I talked about anatomy enough here in this example. Like, anatomy refers to the accuracy of your work simply because you are trying to, as the category itself is kind of like self explanatory, right? It refers to the accurate representation, as I said before, of anatomical forms. How accurately are you representing a muscle, for example, right? And then there's obviously a bunch of things, because you go into the realm of trying to represent all of these, right? So what I mean by this is, how do you draw a muscle? And I mean that in the literal sense of what tools to use and what method, right? Most people will do something which is akin to a value study, because that, which is effectively what I did here, although very poorly, because it is, I would assume, I haven't done any anatomical studies yet, and I don't think I will for a very long time. It's just how should I say this? It's the easiest method, or the most, not the easiest, it's the kind of best method to show, to understand, that you understand where these forms, end up in, and how they end up working on your skin, how they make certain, I don't know, dents and bulges and whatever else, right? Or however the forms then bend, right? However they represent themselves. So usually they refer to like to like a method of like value studies in a sense. But again, let's kind of move on to drive the point home and not get lost too much on the minute details here. So in my opinion, anatomy refers to accuracy. Actually, also to rendering, but maybe render is not the best category here. You know, I might have to rethink this eventually. So let's just stick to accuracy. Okay. So another tip people will give you is tell you, well, go to draw a box. Go do 250 boxes. No, don't do 250 boxes. Just don't. Don't do 250 boxes, please. Don't do it. It's stupid. But why? You know, you might ask yourself the question, why is that stupid? Why does it not work? Well, because it too is referring to an accurate representation of something. You are training yourself to be more accurate. Most of the lessons on Draw a Box, you know, are things like, especially when you start out, the accuracy of your lines. In a sense, how straight can you draw a line? Well, how straight can you draw a line? I don't know. Sometimes it works better for me. Sometimes it works worse for me. Sometimes I can immediately draw a straight line. Sometimes I can't. And while there is value in trying to refine this technical aspect of your art journey, most of art isn't actually about technical accuracy. It's not about your technical skill most of the time. Because the biggest issue is that everything is based off of the principles. Perspective, again, is second stage. This is not for a beginner. Let me go actually. This is not a beginner level. Right? This is not a beginner level. Accuracy is not where you should start at all, ever. It's the worst idea you can have. This is how you destroy your interest in art, unironically. Then we go to value. Value is a bit more tricky in that it encompasses a bunch of different areas, I would say. And although I think it has more to do with mastery, I would still put it at accuracy. Why at accuracy, though? Why not at principle state, for example? Finally, right? Why is it not a principle? Let me first talk about why I think it's an accuracy issue, Most of the time, again, since we talked about value studies earlier, what are you trying to represent? Think about it. What are you trying to represent with a drawing? A form, right? An object, a human being, a symbol, architectural designs, whatever, right? All of these things we can only see because of light. And there's a lot of things to get lost in that regard as well, And while value isn't the only way in which you can draw, right? This, like, obviously not. Like, you can draw like this cartoonish style too, There's hardly any value. There is some, like the shadow part here, right? Like the slightly thicker lines, which also work in a similar manner, right? These things here, we're trying to represent an indent in the form here, right? These are value things. And while they make an image pop, and really, it's like it's kind of like supporting evidence in a case. It's supporting evidence in this regard, in this context, supporting evidence of you representing three-dimensional form. I don't know why I drew that either. I wanted to say something about it, then I kind of lost the train of thought. So it's, you know, I would actually say value is kind of like a split thing, though it's not 50-50. It's more like a two-thirds, it's two-thirds rendering or like final representation of things. Although in that sense, color theory, I guess, would be a more pure example of this last category that I intended to, hit you over the head with, I suppose. What did I want to say now? Kind of wanted to say something else too. I forgot. I forgot. Yes, it's at least Anyway, it's a three, two-thirds. Sorry, three-thirds. It's a two-thirds split. It's a two-thirds split of rendering and accuracy values. Value fundamentals, which honestly nowadays I haven't seen too many people rank as a fundamental, but a lot of people are like anatomy, or rather perspective. That's a big one. Perspective is a massive one. This is what a lot of people will tell you should focus on. Occasionally you will hear them try and make the case for anatomy, though it's a bit rarer. Value is not exactly something someone would declare as fundamental, because it's just that difficult. So the understanding is different here. Not that perspective wouldn't be difficult either, and the training that comes along with it. But like, I'm trying to just give you like practical advice here. And so what I sometimes hear too is like line weight. But what exactly is line weight? Well, it's, I would even rank it as a sub genre or subgenre, like a subcategory. I would rank it as such, a subcategory of value. Say value is the principle, right? As in the higher order, right? That's what I mean with principle in this specific context. And line weight would be below it. Why? Very simple. You're trying to effectively, let me try and give you an example here. I think this is a form, right? Oh, actually, I did it before here. I can just go here and show you. If you follow these lines, right? Just look at them. Look at the lines. This line in here, this line in here, this line in here, right? Basically everything that's inside the form, inside the outline, you try and draw lighter. Oh, it's like, you try and draw it lighter, I personally, like, with this tool, I have to draw faster, which is a bit, Anyway. So in a sense, what I did here is kind of like line weight, There's a lot of different I can't English anymore. Interpretations. There we go. Interpretations. I don't know why why that just happened. Sorry about that. It's not about the. Sorry, I started wrong. There's a lot of different interpretations of line weight, in the sense that there's a lot of different ways people do it. Some even decide. I think I talked about this before. Some even decide that line weight isn't an issue for them. They'll just do it differently. Say, instead of making this line that's inside a form, let's just say we have like I don't know, a box, whatever. Who cares? We have a box here, right? This is the box. Ugly box. Whatever. And for some reason, you need a line across it, right? Instead of making this line as line weight, general line weight advice or mm, thought, I suppose you could say, would tell you, instead of trying to make this line thinner, which is effectively what you're usually doing, some people are just like, well, I don't need to make it thinner. I could also just be like making it a dotted line. You know, there's a very lot of different interpretations, so it's not really something people tell you when they talk about fundamentals. I can't even, honestly, most of that shit I've forgotten. Most of the advice in terms of focus on your fundamentals. And then I watch a video and I feel like I learned absolutely nothing. And then I repeat that because I'm like, well, someone has to know something. And I've reached a point where I was like, how is it that literally everyone, instead of just telling me what I should work on, is guiding me to the is making basically a sales pitch. Like they're trying, all of them trying to sell me their courses, which I understand. You know, I'm not mad at the selling part necessarily. I just kind of think that you don't know what you're talking about, and I question if I should be paying you anything. Like, come on, this is not difficult. Like, tell me if I can't make it, I'll come to you anyway. You know, give me the information, let me try, and if I fail, I can still go to you because you know what? You earned my trust by telling me the truth. You know. But instead of telling you and trying to actually make you understand what you should be focused on, what you should be focusing on, a lot of the advice seems like a deflection. At least that's the feeling I got. I don't know how it's, you know, for you specifically. Maybe you don't have that issue. Maybe you understood something I didn't. Could also be the case, you know. But, you know, if you happen to have that same feeling, or if that's what you thought when you were trying to figure out, well, what are the fundamentals actually? I just want to improve. Please help me. I shall enlighten you right now. And I've done this a lot of times, you know, throughout my streams here, and it's the stuff I basically gathered. So, principles. Let's get the pyramid here. Pyramid principles. Principles, accuracy, ACC, sorry, and then render, right? So, now that we've decided, or now that I've told you what I think are not useful pieces of advice, let me enlighten you and try to tell you the things that I think that I try to keep in mind, like the actual things that I try to keep in mind when I'm talking. What? When I'm talking? When I'm drawing? What the fuck? Huh? sorry, sorry. Cut that. When I'm drawing. So, what are these things? I've talked about them quite a lot of times, but I try to keep in mind a few basic rules of how to describe three-dimensional form. What personally helped me, and I think that's honestly, I think that's very true. Or maybe I'm a bit too shy to tell you this straight on. So the principles are as follows. This is the objective truth. This is what you should be focusing on. I'll tell you right now. Sorry. Take two, I'll tell you right now, right? First, the bend in your lines. Bend your lines properly. What do I mean by this? Very vague, right? What do I mean by this? Do I mean make everything a curve? No, I don't. And this is like, let me just write it down here. What I mean by this is contour lines. Contour lines. This is what I mean by bending your lines properly. Let me give you an example. Let me go a layer up, turn all of this off. What do I mean by this? Actually, let me get this on the new layer here. This stuff might help. I don't know. We'll see. Cut selection to new layer. And then we just merge them. Turn this off. Right? Am I stupid? What? Huh? Am I dumb or is it not working? Uh-huh. Wait. Okay, this is taking too long. I feel like I'm kind of losing it. The point here, you know. I don't want to stick too long on this. What do I mean by contour lines? What do I mean by properly bending your lines? Simple stuff, actually, really simple stuff. Let's try and draw an arm, okay? Say you want to draw an arm. This might be what your arm looks like. Maybe you have even gone ahead and drawn a circle for the shoulder. Hope you did. When you draw this circle in the shoulder, you've actually done a part of what I mean. You've done a little bit of contour lines. Why? Well, because you're basically adding a modification to these lines, of these two lines below. What kind of modifications, you might ask? A downward ellipse. Because the lower part of the circle you added is now giving direction to the arm. Okay? So that might also tell you that drawing circles for your shoulders might be a bit dangerous if you're truly just starting out. Instead, you might try, for example, just using a triangle. That's fine. Like, this is now my shoulder. Now I have foregone the bend, essentially. Like, my lines aren't perfectly straight, as you can see though, but still, this is now the shoulder. Instead of doing a circle, just do a triangle. Do something that doesn't add a contour line. But that's not the important thing. That's like more optimization. Let's stick to the basic principles here. What do I mean with contour lines? I essentially mean this. Giving your forms a direction by bending your lines over them. Right? And it will look very weird when you have no knowledge about anything else, right? When you're starting out. But that's more like because you're getting used to actually drawing. To make it easier on the eye, right? You might add some very basic outlines. You know, this is not exactly my masterpiece, I have to say, but it gets the point across, I would think. You know? Wait, where would the thumb be? Let's say this is the right hand, the left hand actually. Say this is the left hand. I haven't done a whole lot of things here. I have taken this as a mark, really. This bend here, or this line here. This is the principal contour line, really. The rest is just the outline of the form, right? This is just outlining the form. But because I added this here, it kind of works. Now, if I start doing things like this, say you don't know how this works, right? And you just think, oh, I just have to add a bunch of contour lines. It can work if you're essentially doing ellipses here, because you're basically doing a cross section at that point, right? But the danger lies here in bending your lines improperly, in that you're doing something like this, for example. I'm really trying to fuck it up right now, but I feel like I'm not able to do it. Actually, this might work. Yes. This looks pretty bad. This looks actually pretty bad. You know? If you don't know let me recover here. Now that I've told you what I mean with contour lines, right? You might ask yourself, well, how do I know how to place them? Good question. And you have to think like this. What you're representing, right, is a three-dimensional form. You are trying to represent a human being. And as far as I know, human beings aren't lines on a screen or a piece of paper. They are a little bit more than that, you know? So you have to keep in mind that they actually live in 3D space. You live in 3D space. Look at yourself. Do you look like a lion? And hey, I mean, it's not supposed to call you too thin or anything, you know. But do you look like a lion, or do you look like, I don't know, a body, somebody? You know, do you look like you have limbs? You have a head? What are these things, right? What is a head? What is a limb in terms of an artist, right? Well, they are forms. So you will know how to bend your lines by trying to figure out where the where the forms are going. Okay? So you're trying to keep in mind, for example, that your lines merely represent the direction. Your lines represent the direction your form is trying to travel in. Still pretty vague, right? Or it could be a bit vague if you really don't know what you're doing. Just think about it. What's closer to you? What is closer to the canvas edge? Like you have to think about the canvas as a window. Okay? You look into a window, don't you? That's what you're trying to do when you're drawing. You're trying to look into the world that you are building. Oftentimes it's just a character that's standing there, right? But you're looking into the world the character is standing in. And that's what you have to represent. So you have to think about the distance. That's also a fundamental. Like I'm now telling you a lot of principles. This isn't just contour lines, but it is what contour lines work off of. So perhaps they are the true principles, you know, like overlapping. That's a fundamental. Why is it a fundamental? Why is overlapping things a fundamental? Look at it. With simply just, what is this, 7 lines? Oh, I can't count. 8 lines. I've made 8 lines. You now think that this form is behind this form, don't you? Because that's how how this shit works in our real world. If things overlap, one thing by definition has to be behind the other. And that's what you have to keep in mind when you're trying to draw your contour lines. Which forms overlap? Which forms are closer to you? Right? You're trying to draw into space. And to represent this accurately, that's, that's where uh, perspective would come into play at that point. But don't worry too much about that yet. If you can't visually represent this stuff yet, that's fine. Don't take too much on your plate. That's the most important thing. And while this isn't exactly like the greatest example of perspective, it kind of works. Maybe. Maybe it works. I don't know. You be the judge of that. Does it look like you're moving into something? I'm not so much trying to be accurate with where my vanishing lines go, but this is not the point of the example anyway. This is not the point of the discussion we're having here right now. This is the basic rules of perspective. Give you they essentially give you a buff, but they don't modify your base stats. You know, the base stats. That's essentially what I'm talking about. Like when you're starting out as a beginner, you want to know about how the base mechanics or the base stats can be improved. But you don't know what the base stats are. It's like you're playing an MMORPG, right? You play a game, a strategy game, or a role play game, whatever it is, right? You play any of these games and you try to figure out how to fight, for example. I want to fight. You try and punch someone, you immediately die. And then you're like, huh, okay, do I have not enough health? Well, you don't see your health. Well, that sucks. What kind of video game is that? It's weird, right? That sucks. Why do I not have health? Is that why I'm dying? Is it bugged? That's the first thing you might want to ask yourself, right? You start a game, an RPG, and you don't have health. Okay? You try to pick something up, say an item from the ground. All you get is like maybe a dialogue line from your character that thing is too heavy. It's too heavy. Okay, then you might ask yourself, okay, how can I pick it up? When can I pick it up, rather? Because obviously I have some base stats. Can I see them? There is no window for your base stats. They are obscured. They are hidden behind the workings of the game. That's essentially where you start out as an artist. You don't know the base stats, and you have no way of looking at them accurately. Because you don't know what they're about, because you're starting out. That's what I'm trying to describe here to you. What are the base stats? How can we reveal them? And more importantly, how can we try and improve on them? And while I don't have the best methodical approach to this yet myself, because I am learning, right? I have some idea, because I've just been doing it for quite a while now. So how do we discover the base stats, or as I called them earlier, the principles? Right? How do you reveal them? How do you know them? That's a difficult thing. You have to try. The way of doing it is the way of finding it out for yourself, really, is simply just drawing a subject you like and observing it. That's really all you can do. You draw the thing that you want to draw. Say, I really want to draw an eye. I want to draw an eye now, so I do this. This is an eye. Maybe you do something like this. Maybe something like this. I don't know. Like how do you? It's not supposed to be a flex or anything because I'm like actually bad. But let's say that's the eye you draw. It doesn't really look like an eye. Maybe you have some reference. You look at the eye. Oh, okay. Well, then you spend 8 hours perfectly copying what you see. Right? Also a trap that a lot of beginners fall into. Don't do it. But it's your only approach that you have because you can only really draw, observe, and rectify. And through that rectifying, really, you slowly approach the understanding that the more accomplished artists have, which can be broken down into very few simple things. That's when it is very beneficial to have a mentor of sorts, someone who can help you you know shorten that journey, because it's an arduous journey and it's very difficult. Do you really want to figure all of that stuff out for yourself? And hey, I'm not someone to tell you to not do it. Not at all. That's not my argument. Not at all. I'm just questioning if that's what you want to do, you know? And there is certain things that you can only learn, through this kind of approach of only doing it yourself. But those are very few and have those are very like, specific lessons that might not help you in the immediate, you know? These are things you want to try to do and consider when you're trying to master the craft. It's not really something to do for a beginner. And hey, maybe you're a genius that doesn't have to think about any of this, right? And you're just here to listen to some random dude ramble. I don't know. Either way, this kind of looks worse than before because I don't. That's like the difference then in accuracy here. If I just leave it like this, it looks perfectly fine. This kind of looks like a fist, no? Kind of. You can convince someone that this is a fist, or at least a hand. You know, I'm sure that's something that can happen. So, let's go back to where we left off. Before I went on this tangent, I'm not sure what I tried to explain with. Sorry, but we were talking about contour lines, overlap, and trying to figure out how to know in which way to bend your lines. As I said before, you want to try to keep in mind which object is closer to you. Is it object A or is it object B? And that depends entirely. It depends entirely on what you're capturing of the subject, really. What pose they're doing. In this case, right, it's plainly obvious that this fist is closer to us than this shoulder. Because it's smaller, right? That's the kind of tricks you do. So the truly base stats are overlap, I don't know what the technical term for this would be. Oh, what? Oh, over. Overlap. Like base stat, Let's do principle here. But since contour lines are very close to this and are the first real practical implementation, depending on, of course, of how you how you try to do another thing that is construction. But let me not get too lost here to not confuse everyone. So the first thing, the first base stat would be overlap. Very important to gauge the distance between objects, or rather, not necessarily that, to gauge on a very basic level which thing is closer to you. So in a sense, it is a distance thing, but it's not a mathematical formula or anything. But it's like it's an overview in a sense. What's supporting evidence, I would say, for this, or also another base stat, not number one, but number two maybe, right? Would be the size of an object. Something that's smaller is further away than something that's larger. Not always, but usually that's how this works. You know, that's how all of these camera tricks work, right? You want to pretend the tower of, I don't know, of Pisa is like, I don't know, in your palm, right? You're gonna say, hey, I'm holding I'm holding the world in my hands. And hey, perhaps you are. Good for you, right? You do something like this maybe. This is a very ugly hand, but I think it serves the purpose, even though it's not particularly accurate. It serves its purpose. I think it kind of looks like you're balancing it on the back of your hand rather than the inside. So hey, that's at least a new way of doing it. I've seen a lot of people just and only doing it on the front, on the inside of their palm, right? Maybe we'll do something like this. Something like that, right? So you're now balancing the Tower of Pisa on the back of your hand. Distance, size, right? You're trying to do a perspective, quote unquote, trick. But we want to keep it simple. Because in perspective, a lot of the training that you would do also is drawing boxes, because obviously you need to be accurate with your boxes to properly show where they are in perspective. Maybe not. Is this enough? I don't know. Could be. Could also not be the case. We could also just do something else. Could also focus on something else. You know? It's like, well, I just want to separate. What the hell is happening? I just want to separate the buzzword of the fundamental from the practical advice I would like to give you instead. And while, again, this is kind of like supporting evidence in a sense, perspective and accurate lines, it's not the most important thing. It's not at all. This can look nice and it can be useful, but if your goal is to draw figures, for example, it's usually not the easiest to learn anyway, because you're not dealing with geometrical forms most of the time. So you have to start building in boxes, giving that proper orientation and perspective, but then yet still, at some point, you have to draw the curves. You have to give form to your drawing. Because regardless of how accurate your boxes are, an accurate box will ultimately not help you draw the type of, character you might want to draw. You know? Or maybe I'm just trying to make a case for my laziness and all of what I said is bullshit. Right? At least I'm not trying to sell you anything. So take this advice with a grain of salt. But the base stats, your principles, really are overlap, size, and contour lines. So if we break this down into our descriptor of the pyramid, our symbol, right? RACC. And then we have, whoops, maybe more segments in here, right? This thing is the principles. Prints. Whatever. We have contour lines, perhaps size, perhaps overlap. So let me break this down into a practical way for you. How, again, do you know in which way to bend your contour lines? By observing the size and overlap of the forms to determine in which direction it is going, right? For example, this fist is clearly coming towards us, but not directly. Why do I know that? Because it's not overlapping enough with the rest of the forms here. So it looks like the hand is going slightly off to the side. Why do I know it's coming towards us? Because it's larger than the forms behind it. And then how did I know in which way to bend the shapes? By observing what I just told you. So here's the rule. If a form is coming towards you, depending of course on the direction the form, it's a bit difficult to figure this out perfectly from the get-go, but usually it is like this. If something is coming towards you, depending on what plane you're looking at, right? We're looking at the side of the plane of an arm here. Say this is the arm. This is whatever kind of fist thing, right? Oh, these are the fingers type of deal. Maybe here we have the thumb. I don't know. Like I'm not, this is not exactly accurate. But we're looking at the side of the arm, right? So we have to bend the lines in such a way that they describe that this form is coming towards us. In general, forms that are coming towards you, you describe with a bend. How do I? Oh, I haven't actually thought about this enough because I've been doing it by intuition, in a sense, by what looks good, right? I've just tried to keep in mind where the form is going. In this, I can only give you examples, really. You'll have to do the groundwork yourself, unfortunately. But let's say this arm is coming directly towards us, or roughly pretty close towards us, Maybe not perfectly, but pretty damn close. Let me see. In this case, if we have here a fist, right? We have the fist here. We have the thumb there. Maybe another finger here. Whatever. It's not about the accuracy, really. It's just about making it believable enough. Although I am, I'm doing some like cheating here. Like I am trying to keep some basic principles in mind here. So I'll have to probably modify my principle stance. But let's just do one thing after the other, right? This thing is coming towards us. The contour lines, therefore, are going up. We are looking at the plane as it's coming towards us. So the bend in the forms show up. They bend upwards. Because we're looking at it from above, slightly, as you can tell. We're slightly looking at the form from above, right? So like this would be the exact angle, right? But I can't really draw an arrow that would work this way. So let's just pretend a little bit and say we're looking at this form from above. If we're looking at this form from below, right? Something like this maybe. Actually, let me bend it a lot more, as I did here. Oh yeah, I should do the lines first and then put in the contour. The contour, something like this maybe. This is actually a pretty damn difficult perspective angle. But we're not trying to get overwhelmed anyway right now. So, let me kind of get rid of this actually here. Maybe this is too much, right? But I just want to give you like an example. Actually, that works. Let's just elongate this a little bit here. Not trying to do this perfect like anatomical review here. Now we are looking actually flatly from below this form. But as you can tell, the form is now, the bends are downwards. So I guess, and I think that's a principle. That might actually be the thing, because you're trying to describe the planes. So think about this. To know how to place contour lines, how to place contour lines. I hope this is readable. Bend the lines. Depending on form, depending on travel direction, depending on, this is a bit messy, but this is not supposed to be like on travel direction, right? Travel direction. Bend the lines depending on travel direction towards the camera. Towards you. or rather in the direction, in the general direction that the but this might be towards the, like there's two words to describe direction, right? Like there's a vector, I think, right? And then there's an area or something. Like in German, there's like two ways to say um, this way, essentially, right? You can say, let me think about it actually now. I think it's Richtung and um, oh, what was the other one? It was like a mathematical principle. Um, ooh, 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 ooh. To describe like uh, actually I have to look this up. Um, like mathematical symbols, maybe. Um, it's a logical expression, I believe, but I don't quite remember. Not too sure though. I can't quite remember. Anyway, we're talking about the general direction. Maybe like I don't know, direction and uh, let's break it down into like east, west, north, and south, right? So northeast, southwest, right? Like if you tell someone to go north, okay, might help them. Not very accurate, but at least they're going north, right? But if you want them to reach a specific point in the northern hemisphere, for example, on our planet, you might try and give them like longitude and what is it? Longitudinal and the other thing, you know? Basically, the two numbers, they're like, you know, it's north 29 degrees, so like 29 degrees north, and I don't know, 13 degrees west. I think that's how these lines work, right? North 29, west, whatever, 13. Who cares? Latitude and longitude. So we go like 29 north, 13 west. Yes, latitude 29, longitude 13, I think. Or minus 13? I'm a bit confused. I don't, particularly understand how these things work, but, if you want, why did I bring this up? Right, because of the direction. So you're trying to not necessarily bend the lines directly towards you, because that would just be a straight line, right? Let me try and give you an example here. This is a fist, right? You can tell it's supposed to be an arm, right? Maybe I could be a bit more accurate and draw in a thumb here to sell the idea a bit better. I don't know if that helps. But if you were to try these, to try and draw these lines here, these bends that we've been talking about, directly towards us, it would be like this. This would be direct. This is a line or an ellipse or a circle or any other plane directly facing us. A straight line, right? So we're trying to bend these in the general direction that we're looking at them from, to the right, you know? And I guess there's some more things about this, maybe like volume also influences. Like, these aren't just for showing direction of your forms. They can also be used to encompass the mass of an object, you know, the volume of an object, I think. But we try to keep it simple for now, you know. Try to keep it simple, don't overextend yourself. Bend the lines depending on travel direction. On travel direction towards the general, towards the general cardinal, like, no, this is kind of stupid. General direction, the form is observed, is a bit long, is observed from, observed from. So, but this is like the kind of detail, the minute detail that you'd have to figure out just trying it. So I can't, and I really don't want to keep on talking, because I've been talking for 2 hours now. No, for 1 hour, which is more than enough. This wasn't supposed to be a course at all, but I think I also learned something from it, because I'm like, you know, when I'm talking and I'm trying to convey information, I'm also having to sort this through, and I come up with new ideas. Now, what you've noticed, if you have been paying attention, which might be a little bit difficult, listening to some old man yap for an hour about random ass things on the internet, might be difficult, but if you have been following what I have been putting down, if you have been picking it up rather, oh, let me just drink something. My throat is getting like cold. It's weird, because it's like years. I have to slow down a bit. I've been kind of neglecting this. This was very exhilarating experience, I do have to say. Anyway, if you have been paying attention, you might have noticed some things I did. What are some of these things I did? If you look at these lines here, this line, let me actually switch to a red. If you look at this line here and this line here, right? They are going in a specific direction, aren't they? This is a principle of perspective that I would also say vanishing points. This is a principle as well, I would say, a base stat. With just these 4 things, you'll be good to go. I haven't added this earlier. Let me backtrack a bit here, actually, because I don't think I've really talked about this. Like, if you really don't know anything about the basics, right? These 2 lines are going towards something that's called a vanishing point, you know? And while my lines aren't accurate, which I didn't want to do, they roughly are believable. It kind of works. it kinda works. It's not egregiously wrong. They're heading towards a vanishing point. What does this vanishing point do? Truly, what does it truly do? It's, in a sense, really part of the first principle, part of overlapping. It also kind of cuts into size, but it's more a function of overlap, simply because you're trying to gauge the distance here. Although I guess it deserves its own category in the base stats. Let's keep it simple. Let's put it into its own category. Let's not try to do too many confused connections here, and like keep it simple, keep it readable, and that kind of stuff. I had to breathe in. I felt like I haven't been breathing the past hour. I don't know what I was doing. I was like in a state of mania. I've been a maniac. Yes, kind of feeling like all the pain right now coming back slowly. Damn. I was really into this, trying to explain my thought process here. So anyway, this is what we will just simply put as vanishing points. So I have actually kind of like I've backtracked. I've had to backtrack actually now that I think about it, right? Because earlier I was saying that perspective is not part of the principles. It is, but only the most basic aspect of it. And I was thinking more in the general advice people give you, where they often talk about, draw a box and the accuracy of your lines, that kind of thing. If you're only focusing on vanishing points, it is a principle. It is a very important principle. If only focused on vanishing, whatever, points. So, if you're only focusing on vanishing points, if that's what you understand as perspective being, as being part of perspective or the main part of it, whatever, which if you take the word literally, that's what it is. If this is what you're talking about specifically, I have to backtrack on my earlier statements here, that it is a part of a principle. So it is actually a quite competent guiding point for your beginning of the journey in art. For your beginning of a journey in art. Whatever this word salad is that I'm trying to put down here. Anyway. More important, honestly, I believe, is the overlap, the size, and the contour lines. If you do these three things properly, you can represent most art. You can represent most things. Because, it really only applies for this very specific thing here. Because I could have just drawn this differently here, this fist, and it would have worked out. I don't know which way these vanishing points are heading to. I haven't looked at this. I didn't care. Here I had to make the concession and at least do this kind of thing and try and keep the form to also go into that direction, right? Simply because the perspective, the way we are looking at this form is pretty extreme, It's pretty extreme. In most cases, though, if you're just drawing a portrait, you don't have to care about vanishing points. You don't. Yet still, your art looks like shit, probably, right? I mean, mine does too. Very much so, in fact. Let me just go around here. I think I talked about everything now that I wanted to convey. But let me just give you one example, one last example here. Was it this? Kind of, yeah. This works, right? And then when you're starting out and your art looks like dog shit, being able to draw something like this, I think would be a massive motivational boost, no? Like if I could have drawn like this from day one, like you wouldn't believe all of the pain and suffering I would have like just not had to go through. And that was my journey, you know. Yours might look completely different in terms of what the suffering is you have to go through. Like this I just drew out of imagination, and it's poorly done if you look too close, you know? If you look really close, the proportions don't work, the perspective is off, the volume of the forms don't work. Where is the shadows? Is this even a proper posture? Does it work for how she's standing, you know? Where's the thing she's standing on? Right? Like a lot of issues. You can improve this like by a billionfold. I wouldn't even know. Like I'm not that far yet. So eventually I'll come back to it, look at it, and try and fix it, redraw it, you know? That's a lot of what this one artist I find also live streaming on YouTube. I think, is his name Hero or something with H, Japanese artist, who is, you know, really trying to translate all of his videos into English for you to Hide channel. Hide channel. He's like really trying to make this accessible to English speakers. But a lot of times the the translations don't work. They simply aren't there. In some videos they are, and they are like done by a professional, you know, or at least someone who knows the language pretty well, you know. And he basically goes in and does these like videos or live streams. I'm not quite sure which of the two, but you know, content either way, where he takes a fan art, like the art of one of his fans, one of his students, you might even say. I think he does a course. I haven't looked into it yet though. And tries to correct it. Right? Eventually, I will do this too for my arts, for my art pieces. Perhaps at some point I'll have a community. I don't know. For now, I'm still trying to learn how to draw. And I have to take a break a little bit here. An hour just standing around is a bit much. So I'll be right back. I hope I wasn't talking too fast. I hope you could take some notes. I'll be right back. Let me just walk around a bit and get my pain out of my system, because this is like, ouch. I feel like I've done something really bad with my rib cage, even though I was just sitting. Anyway, I'll be right back. Oof. Um, shit. That was a lot longer than I wanted it to be. Ay, 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 ay. Sorry, guys. Very sorry about that one. But with new energy, I'm back for more. Why did I... Sorry, I put in the Mentos. I just... I'm ready for more. Let me just not talk anymore. You know what? I've talked so much. Actually, I'll not I'll not be talking for a little bit here. I'll just in all how should I say this? Hmm. Calmly and without stressing myself, I'll just eat the Mentos. Um, well, I'd probably draw some, Pinterest things. So if you don't see the canvas moving or not a lot of things happening, I'm probably looking for Pinterest images. Okay? I should have actually come earlier and done this instead, but I was lying on the ground, trying to fix up my back because it was hurting a lot. Now it's a lot better though. So, see you in a little bit, okay? Okay, sorry. Sorry for the long silence here, but I kind of just felt like relaxing my voice a bit here because I've been talking an hour non-stop. No, don't want to destroy what I barely have anyway. So please do forgive that I wasn't talking a whole lot or anything rather. So anyway, I didn't really do a whole lot other than just eat a few Mentos and look for art. But what I just noticed, is like, look at this guy. Look at this drawing. So, I'm eating another Mentos again. I'm very sorry about that. That was like a reflex. Let me put this away here. Sorry about that. So we can observe this, right? Retroactively. Prove that what I'm saying is true. Let's go onto the paint layer. Go onto this. Yes, okay. So, kind of want to keep this smaller here. Actually, I haven't even put on my drawing glove today. Because the first entire hour was, exercise. Or rather, almost like a course, you know? But let's observe this and see if what I'm saying actually works out. Look at this. Look at the bend of this line in here. May actually take this and this large here, yeah, right here. You see this line, the bend in here, and while there is like a bunch of supporting strokes, right? There's a bunch of different strokes. This one is the one that's actually important. Also down here, If you look at this, for example, he has basically foregone the bend in the lines here, the contour line, because he didn't want to give this too much volume. There is still volume in this. And how does he describe it? Through contour lines within the form, which is also a thing. You don't only have to put them at the beginning, midpoint, or end of a form. But if we were to break this down, right, as the beginners that we are, we would probably simplify this as this. There's a bend in here. There's another bend in here. Right? The horn would look a lot different if I had drawn it, this way. But you can observe all of these things. Now look at this. Look at this. Right, this is the end of the head, right? Right? There's a change in plane. So this plane goes backwards. If you think about it, right? It goes back into the picture. The contour lines go up. He's trying to define a form here that has these segments. I don't know what exactly this is. Is it the vertebrae looking through? Vertebrae, like the spine looking through, pushing through? Is this the muscle that sit on top? I don't know. I don't know what these lines specifically want to describe. I just know they want to describe a form that we are looking down at. Therefore, they look up. But since the form starts bending back here, the bend in the contour lines also changes along with the direction they are traveling in. In other words, the form goes like this, right? And you can tell that because of these things all around here, keeping this same idea going. You know, that's also a way. But that's a bit more complex. It's a little bit more like nuanced and trained to use, like, to not be directly describing your forms all the time. You can also do that through the things immediately surrounding the forms that you're trying to describe. But that's a bit, off topic, really. Let's just focus on the simple things, one thing at a time, and try to observe what we are seeing here. Right? Now, another principle I forgot to mention, ironically, or I guess as a kind of trick of fate, the one principle I forgot to tell you about is the one principle I always forget to actually make use of, which is what? Can you guess it? The hidden number 5. Number 5 in principles, which is, if we were to rank them, actually something like number 1. So this is actually the hidden rule 0, for me at least, because I always forget it. Construction. Construction. Simple stuff. What is construction? Outlining. Putting into a volume encasing form what you're trying to draw, to make it easier to draw that thing. Right? Why is that easier? Because it gives you guidelines. It helps you with your stroke confidence, which also influences a lot of other things, but that's, another topic again. Nothing you have to worry too much about right now. Just focus on the simple things, trying to encase the subject into very simple primary forms. This is part of the abstraction that I've been talking about, as a overbearing theme, I guess, of art, or like how would you say this in proper English terms? I mean, I've written it down, and that was pretty early in our art journey here, learning how to abstract from reference, which is exactly what this principle is about. We can also name it abstraction. Not as in abstraction as in digital circus, but abstraction as in, because why? Why exactly? Because it's easier to find all the landmarks afterwards. But it's not set in stone. A lot of these rules, actually, never mind. Construction, this is kind of working out. Why is this working out so well now that I think about it? It is, I suppose, not only hidden rule number 0, because I always forget it. It's also hidden rule number 0, because you can actually, once you get good enough at constructing forms, simply not construct them. You can just simply not do it. Oh, sorry. Muted myself there. My bad. Yes, it's also hidden rule number 0, because you can stop using it without losing out, But this is the type of stuff you start doing when you don't really know where to place all of the interesting things. And hey, you don't have to let go of this method either. And, you know, if you know any of the masters, in the modern sense, I guess Kim Jung-gi, I think, or Kim Jung-ji. I don't quite remember. I don't want to say anything wrong here. I think it was, yeah, he's a Korean. He died, as far as I know. I haven't been following his career too much, but you know. But this is the type of stuff you either carry all the way from the inception to its grave, and that means your own grave, or you lose it at some point, in your development, or you just do away with it. PewDiePie, I think, did it, and that's what he was talking about when he was trying to learn how to draw without having to construct everything. I think, was it his 365-day art journey thing? I think it was. I have to sit down now. My leg is starting to hurt. My foot in a very bad way. I don't like it at all. So, but I've been mostly yapping today. I want to draw something. We'll see. Maybe I'll try drawing something on my own. I kind of found this interesting. This is like a slightly more advanced thing. Usually not something you should be worrying about up until the point where you start experimenting with your art. I think I'm at that point right now. So it's like, I think I'm at the point where I would start trying to understand what shape language is, which is this, what this is supposed to be describing. What is shape language? Simply put, it's transposition of a shape onto a more complex, how should I say, object. And that's the thing he's trying to show you here. Because if you look closely at the second example here, obviously there isn't only a type of square here. Like, this is obviously not a square. Does that mean he's failing at his shape language? Not really. Not really. Because this is it's a sort of abstract, how should I say, definition or topic, in that it doesn't have to specifically describe the shape that you're putting in. It could also describe a sort of volume. Like, if your shape language is kind of squared, what do we mean by square? Someone's squared, someone's fat, for example, or someone is big, right? Or there's a lot of, like, I don't know, girth, I guess you could say. Does that work? I don't know. But essentially, shape language is that kind of thing, that kind of deal. It's not necessarily, ouch. It's not necessarily a direct one-to-one transposing of simple shapes onto more complex shapes, right? Like, personally, and I might not be looking enough, might just not be looking enough, I personally don't see a singular square shape on this. Now, if you want to, like, deconstruct it and say there's like a sort of square in here that he used to construct the head. That would work, surely. Though, I mean, personally, I'm not, I'm still learning about this specific thing. But it's been quite a while since I've watched any videos or read up on the principles, on the method, the approach to shaped language. But that's basically what this panel here is about. So yeah, I can see the shapes here though. The head is round, and perhaps he just means how he sketched this, right? Because he could have just gone and be like, okay, there's a triangle. Hey, where's the face? Maybe the face is here. Oh, that's another triangle. Damn. What else? We need a mouth. Damn. That's another triangle, right? But not everything is a triangle in this thing. A lot of things are, don't get me wrong. But he did that, on purpose in this image here. I'm sure you could have done the same here instead of doing this. And I guess he is trying to do that now that I'm looking at it a bit more. But he's generally, I think, just using it as a reminder to use larger planes to describe forms. He's generally just taking like larger steps, you could say. Because if you look at this here, although not as obviously readable immediately, while this is a very large shape, it is clearly supposed to be a triangle. If you just follow the baseline here, it's basically just a triangular lower jaw, triangular upper jaw, triangular fins, or whatever this is supposed to be. Some supporting forms here, and then you go in and do maybe some lizard-like details, right? That's what shape language is about, in broad strokes, So, I haven't made use of that at all, though, so not quite sure what I wanted to achieve with downloading these images. I just kind of felt like the dragon. Maybe that will turn out to be a bad idea, I don't know yet. Let's just try drawing something. Let's just try and draw. Maybe I should... Why don't I try using the shape language thing we just talked about? Instead of building it up as a triangle or a circle, or as a square rather, maybe I'll just use a triangle. Maybe the thing is looking directly at us. Maybe we'll use a triangular shape here and a triangular shape here. Like this, as you can see, like there's many ways to construct, which is why, to an extent, of course, why it's something you can lose or give up. You don't have to construct always, and you don't always have to use boxes either. Like that's a triangle. That's also a triangle. It looks like a weird-ass crown of some sort, But if we try and keep in mind how this type of animal would actually function, and we try to keep some other things in mind, like perspective, for example, specifically vanishing points, right? We can make something work here. I think. We'll see. Let's try it out. Not quite sure yet myself. So it might turn out great. It might turn out like shit. This might be a bit weird because it's not entirely certain. I've kind of messed up the overlap here. But if we just stick to the general forms here, we kind of want to express. Hmm. Ouch. What would certainly help is trying to center things. But that's also part of construction. Again, I'm kind of foregoing it, which is a bad move, actually. I shouldn't do that. But maybe instead of doing a dragon, maybe we'll do like a sort of. What's the name? Phoenix? No. Um, Hippogriff? Like, I don't remember the name. The thing that's kind of like eagle and horse. Hippogriff. Uh, I don't remember the word. I can't remember it. I'm kind of, kind of stupid today. I used up all my skills in speaking earlier. But I'm trying to keep the shapes in mind. It's not always the same shape in the sense of size or volume, but it's roughly a bunch of triangles, right? And that thing might be looking at us directly, and it might be wondering why it is that we are here. And perhaps it's wondering that maybe after all we shouldn't be here. Very soon it's trying to attack us. Ready your swords, in a sense. So just trying to do some variations here in sizes of the shapes. Not be too um, linear in that sense, I could say. You could say, I guess. You know. Then, of course, you would go in and refine this into smaller shapes, or start putting on the light, that kind of stuff. And hey, perhaps our like little friend here is kind of an oddball. Maybe he has a weird proclivity to gather the treasures of his opponents. Maybe he's intelligent enough. Maybe he has like some decorative things in his mane or like in his fur, basically. Ouch, okay, I'm really starting to hurt in my chest area, which I don't really like. I don't like that at all. So, kind of works. It's kind of a construction. Not terrible. Could be better. Like the issues I see, and let me write this down. Issues when loosely constructing. Let me turn my pages. Issues when loosely constructing. um, is like off center. Being off center is an issue. Mm, the proportions are obviously not working properly. In this, you don't really see it because it's kind of like a fantasy thing, so it's believable enough. But if we're being honest, being off proportion. Okay, this is really starting to hurt me now. I might not even be able to go on much longer here. Being off proportion. Ouch. Youch. Ow. But I think that's like a symptom because I had like really poor sleep today. I'm just glad it wasn't, on a Friday because I was just so long. I was awake so long from yesterday to today. Ah. Because of the black tea I drank. I thought I had to die, honestly. And I think this is like the body telling me by force, hey, dude, you are actually tired, go sleep. So that's probably what I will do very soon here. I would like to keep going and solidify some of the things we talked about, But one thing I can certainly tell you now is that your contour lines don't strictly have to be sort of half circles. Not at all. Like you can make them also, feathers, which is more leaning onto overlap than contour lines, but it's making use of them. In this case, the contour line is the end of the feather before the larger ones, which give us a hint at where everything's going, So if you do things like this, maybe. Ow. Ouch. Oh. Sorry. Sorry, guys, for the groaning. Is weird. This is not intentional. I'm just really in pain on my right side of the rib cage. So, ouch. Really trying to force myself here. Not trying to, get myself killed or anything, but kind of hurts when I'm speaking, I think. Yeah, this might have something to do with my diaphragm. Diaphragm? Yes. Like there's a condition where your like lungs and diaphragm do some weird overlapping things. Don't know what it's called. I hope it's not that. Ouch. Not hurting right now. Maybe I got it out if that was a thing, Hope it wasn't. Maybe it's something else entirely. I don't know yet. I might have to, just stop here. But if I don't have to yet. Ouch. Hmm. Ouch. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be pushing myself right now. I feel like I learned a lot of things. Just reflecting and trying to tell you about the discoveries I made, I think has already taught me a lot, actually. Because it's ordered my thoughts in a way that my brain can just can start, thinking about other things again. It's like a backlog. It's like a backlog of sorts, that kind of, it's as if there's too much trash in the bin, right? At some point, you just can't put it in, right? It just doesn't work because it's too full. In this case, I guess the throwing away is the process of learning. Yes, it actually is throwing away the wrong knowledge, right? I don't know. It's like everything is connected somehow. This is looking ugly. I'm not keeping in mind the shading right now, proper values and such. Kind of looks like a clown face almost, like he's laughing at us. But it's also something you have to balance. If you go too much at every point into into the shape you chose as part of your shape language, so to say, you lose the ability to give expressions. Or perhaps it's the orientation of your shape that made the issue be prevalent. Because look, now he looks like he's sighing, almost like he's sad. What if we just want him to stare at us like a neutral thing? This is actually looking even more evil than earlier. Hmm, kind of works. Sorry, guys. I have so much pain, and I really want to take care of myself more. So I guess this was more like a course than anything. So if you're joining right now, or you somehow skipped to this point, I recommend you trying to watch the first hour of the stream. A lot of important things going on. Just a lot of talking though. Might have to look occasionally. Okay, I have to stop it here because talking actually now is starting to hurt, which I really don't like. So I have to go. I have to do some stretches and see if I can get this pain to subside. All right. Take care of yourselves, guys. I hope you learned something. I feel like I did today, but we'll see in the following days. Does this knowledge hold? Do I implement it? I kind of feel like I'm improving. And hey, perhaps that's all it needs sometimes. After all, we are creating our ideal selves, obviously within the confines of a human being. It's not like we just start flying off into the sunset because we think ourselves a god. Anyway, balance is key. Also, having fun. I hope you had fun today. Have a nice rest of your day. And yeah, I'll probably see you next time.